All right, Tim, we're live. What's going on?
Dude, I tell you what, I got the shock of my life this morning. You're just going to blow your mind. You ready?
Yeah.
So I got a client scheduled to close on Friday. I've been asking for some kind of information on the solar panels, on the purchase panel agreement, just something to say, hey, listen, this is the agreement. Our payment is typically $300, offset by the energy cost, that kind of thing. And you want to hear the shock of my life? So my
I bet
client
it wasn't the shock of your life, but yes.
was the shock of my life. So we haven't gotten it. Finally, I get the transaction coordinator on the other side, and I say, hey, I'm having a challenge. We've been asking for this for the last 2 weeks. We need documentation on it. They disclosed there were solar panels, but they said not to worry. I said, great, no problem. I get the agreement this morning, Brian, $52,500. The payments are for 20 years. Okay. The payments are $388.56 for 20 years. The payments start in November of 22. My client cannot afford a $389 payment on top of their purchase.
The weird thing about that, though, and just to play devil's advocate, right?
Hey,
Let's say, for instance, they did not have solar panels, but they had a $450 electric bill.
I'm okay with that.
I know you are, but here's the point. Like, it's still 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, because now they don't have an electric bill. So technically, like, their monthly budget is holding firm, and it doesn't. But to your point, it blew your deal up.
It's blowing my deal up. And more importantly, let me ask you this. I know that right now you're in Arizona where the sun shines 24/7, 12 months, right? And no, you're not. You're in freaking Southern Maryland. Yeah. And I got to tell you, your solar panels are not pumping out the energy you know you need October, November, December, January, February, March. I'm giving you the benefit of April.
June. Okay? You got August.
Okay, so my point to you is this. You're telling me that solar panels are great, and I am a little challenged this morning. In fact, I'm so challenged. I don't normally do this. I'm having.
There you go, bro. Cheers. Get that in there. Get that in the shot.
I see that, man. I see that. Is that a? That's a
Yeti mug, bro. Look at that. We gave one out last week, as a matter of fact. Congratulations, Kim, who guessed that I was the number 2 out of 1,500 EXP agents in volume and sales for the month of April.
Hey, congratulations, dude. That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah, and I gave away a Yeti mug, and I'm giving away another one. I'm giving away another one this week. I don't know what I'm going to use as my criteria, but here you go. I just open it up out of the thing. Still got the paperwork in there. I'm going to give it away. Make sure you look for my email today.
All right, very cool. So, Brian, solar panels.
Yeah.
I think they're really a good idea when selling home. That's my question to you.
So the answer to the question is no. No, it is not a good idea when it comes to selling your home. Like if you add, subtract, divide, and multiply, it is a net negative with one exception. If you bought the solar panels, which I've only seen happen twice.
Well, they bought these and they financed them for 20 years.
No, they didn't buy them. They're leasing them. And at the end of their lease, their solar panels are going to be bolted to the roof, and the company's going to say, well, you can use them for the rest of their life expectancy for free, but we're not touching them.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So, Brian,
I just got a thing from Andrea. She said, we recently 2 years ago bought a home with lease panels. Been a huge headache. Yeah, it is a headache for a lot of different reasons. And I'll tell you this perspective that I don't hear a lot of people say a lot of times. And that is, I think it's kind of un-American in people's minds. Like, okay, I'm going to buy this house. Everything's good. Solar panels, cool. Cheap electric bill. Oh, by the way, you have to pay this company $350 for 20 years. It's like, well, what if I don't want to? What if I didn't want to sign up for that? What if I didn't? What if you got suckered on the terms, and now I got to take that on? I got to make this payment for 20 years.
Correct. And so the way I look at it is, Brian, they bought this house for $450,000, top of the market, top of the market. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And they paid not full price. They paid above full price. Okay. And here I am. To me, they paid $450. They didn't pay $450. They paid $502,500.
That's kind of true because you're basically buying a fixture on the house. It's technically a fixture because it's bolted
Correct.
to the property. It's technically like
Correct.
an income generating fixture, but at the same time, it's still that.
Now let me throw an extra Benny in here. You ready? And in a lot of these solar panel deals, you get a rebate, Mr. Consumer, for buying these units.
Right, and then you take the rebate and sell your house, and the people that take it on don't take advantage of it. So Andrea said that she didn't realize how bad the roof was. 74 panels were covering it. After 10 months on and having them off for 14 months, our bills are cheaper. Our bills are cheaper without.
Wow, Andrew, that's amazing. And that's my point, Brian. You have to do your homework on these things, man. I'm sorry, but you know what?
So let me just play devil's advocate for just a minute. Like the original Tesla, back before it was Tesla, it was Solar City, I think.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and the original deal they had was they would warranty your roof for the entire time. So if there was anything, and they're supposed to come check the roof and make sure that the roof's going to be able to hold up for the 20 years. Like it has to be less than a 5-year or 10-year-old roof or whatever.
Right. Okay.
And they would cover anything that went wrong for 20 years, the equipment, everything. And then there was another thing in there where there was like something to do with the way that the thing was leased, and then they did away with it. Like it's progressively gotten less favorable because they were, incentivizing people to buy these when they first came out. But I bet you don't remember. Do you remember that deal we had in Accokeek where we had to restructure the entire deal at the last minute because of the solar panels? Do you remember what happened?
I do. I remember it happening, but I don't remember the whole situation. No.
So I'll tell you what happened. I did a video on this. It's like if you look back 400 videos ago, I did this video in front of these people's house. Right. So you and I were on this deal. This is the one where you help these people get $40,000 for their down payment from the state.
Disability mortgage, yeah. The state.
So what ends up happening was the state doesn't allow there to be any subordinate liens on the property. And not in every state, but in Maryland, for whatever reason, they put a lien on your property with these solar panels.
And that, for this particular program, do not allow that. Exactly right.
So they basically had a lease for like the 20 years, and it was $70,000 because it was something like they had paid $30,000 up front. They were going to pay $30,000 up front to cover like all the payments, but then the company comes back and says, okay, that's great, thank you, by the way, if you want to get the lien off, you have to buy all the equipment, and that's $50,000. And they ended up having to pay $50,000 on top of it. They ended up like it was an $80,000 swing.
The seller did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible. I felt terrible for the seller. The buyer ends up buying a house. Now the panels are owned outright. The equipment is owned outright, and they get the electric bill covered. But I mean, come on. It was like a 1,500 square foot Rambler. What do you think the electric bill was? $150 a month?
$200. That's my point. Yeah. You've got it factored in and see if it was disclosed up front, and the people bought the house with the solar panels with the idea they were going to save a lot of money. That's different. Let's price it in, right? I don't think it was priced in.
I mean, theoretically, if everything follows the numbers, there are scenarios in which if you own the house and you're not planning on selling it, it could theoretically make you money. Like Andrea's saying, the lease has us paying a higher rate per kilowatt produced by the panels than what Smecco. The other thing is, let me mention that Smecco, for as much as people complain about living and money, right? We have very, very low property taxes, and Smecco is very low for the kilowatt hours. Like it's not the same as Pepco or any of the ones up the road or anywhere other parts of the country. So it doesn't make sense around here the same way it does in other parts of the country. So you're also right about the cloud cover. Like, I don't know all the way the numbers figured. I'm just talking about from a real estate perspective. If you put them on your house and you try to sell your house, what I hear sellers say is like, oh, well, it's a great deal. They're getting a great deal. Like, I'm sort of like, I negotiated the situation in which I'm going to hook these buyers up. The
Right.
buyers do not see it that perspective. Even though you could say, hey, look, it's only $100 a month and you don't have any electric bill and they're actually cutting you a check. Like even in that situation, buyers are not comfortable saying, now I'm stuck with this situation. Now I have to pay this payment for 20 years. And then when it's all said and done, I got to get these panels off. If anything breaks, I got to pay for it. And you're forcing that on somebody else. And it's also not as prevalent as like if you buy a car, you buy a used car. It's like, okay, well, there's plenty of places that fix used cars.
Sure.
But there's the way these solar panels, the companies change hands all the time. The contracts, the people go out of business. Who's going to service the equipment now? The equipment goes like irrelevant with every couple years. So it's like, oh, well, you have the old this or that or the other. No one touches those anymore. It's like buying an old jet ski. Like it seems cool, but go ahead, try to get somebody to fix it.
Not so much. Not so much. And that's one of the things that we want to talk about today. Some of the hidden, shocks that you really have to do your due diligence. I mean, at working with a professional. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, it needs to be disclosed out front. It needs to be one of those items that we have to address immediately.
Yeah, but that's all required in the contract. Like it is supposed to be disclosed. So it's very similar to, and if we want to get into the weeds for a second, it's very similar to a front foot benefit fee and an HOA. You have to disclose all the figures up front, how many years left, how much is owed, the whole thing. And if you read the fine print, it's not great. You're not allowed to touch the equipment. Your roof is kind of like anything you do to it voids all the warranties. And you have to go back through them to get all the service done. Like I would not do it. The only way I would do it is if I don't necessarily want the panels on my roof either. My old, the guy I worked for when I first got in the mortgage business, he bought panels and he had them attached to his barn.
Right.
And they were, and he bought them outright. He paid $20,000, bought them outright. And he said, I haven't had an electric bill in 20 years. And I'm like, bro, that's beautiful.
Huge. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that's different. I mean, you see so many of these advertisements, you go online, you're like, and this says, stop. If you live in Maryland and you're paying electricity, you're paying too much.
Well, it's like the difference between like if you buy your furniture, rent to own furniture versus, going out and buying, negotiating for a really good deal on some quality furniture. If you pay cash for the stuff and you get a quality installer and all that, it's probably fine. But when you're doing it on a rent to own, there's the reason why they're coming to free put panels on your roof. It's because they're making way more money.
Well, I'm going to add to this for you just for fun. Ready? So I'm looking at the security agreement I got this morning, and I basically fell off. I sit on a ball, right? We always talk about this. I sit on a ball, right? And I fell off the ball, Brian.
Some people fall out of their chair. Tim falls off his ball.
Man. So the loan is $52,500. The finance charge, that's the interest, $38,889. Total payments, $91,389.47.
It's kind of like the way that they describe, different, like buying a car or buying like a warranty and all these. They give you certain numbers to make it sound good, like, oh, well, you're only paying this, but they don't mention the finance charge or whatever it is. I'm not saying they trick people or anything, but it definitely sounds good on paper. But in reality, I think it's negligible. Is that even the right word?
It is.
Negligible the amount of savings that you're getting. Like, okay, maybe you're saving $100 or $200 a month. Okay, the risk involved with that seems like a lot. And Andrea just pointed out, yes, the main like benefit that all these guys will spout, which does make sense if you really, again, if I owned my own home and I plan on living there for 30 years, I probably would consider this, because what they're hedging against is electric prices going up. So it's like, you and I talk about buying a home and, maybe the payment feels a little uncomfortable. Well, at the end of 10, 15 years, you're going to be making way more money.
True that.
And then as everybody else's payments go up, yours is locked in once you have a house. So they're locking you into this payment, let's say, $300 a month is a lot for electric now. Well, in 20 years, maybe everybody's paying $700 a month. And then you're like, wow, what do you mean you have a $300 electric bill?
And maybe your panels don't work. I lost more hair on that one, Brian. I'm just telling you, you don't have enough to begin with, man. I just lost more hair.
Yeah. So honestly, and I have no skin in this game, I'm going to give him a thumbs down.
Yeah. This is one of my challenges.
And I feel like your scenario there you're describing is probably like one of the lesser good deals. I've seen people get some deals where I've looked at it before and thought that's not a bad deal. But I could tell you every single person I've ever helped to buy a house, or every time I've sold a house with the panels, the buyers would have preferred not to have it.
True that. And you know what? At the end of the day, Brian, I mean, I hate to say this, but I'm huge on energy efficiency. I'm huge on the climate.
Yeah.
If you go to my house, all I got is these bulbs that barely put any light out anymore. My wife says I'm a cheap person. I'll leave it at that. But you know what I mean? I got water saving toilets. I got everything.
You got some struggles, Tim. We all have our challenges. Tim. We all have them.
Air conditioning. You know that. I've been air conditioning in 25 years, right? I mean, think about it.
That's challenging.
I'm kind of,
We all have our challenges, Tim, right? I'm going to say it that way.
At the end of the day, there's a certain amount of, equilibrium.
But you also have enough money, and if you looked at it, I bet you could talk yourself into buying panels for your own personal house, not putting them on your roof. You have a farm. You could put them next to your house. And you could probably argue that if you drop 25 grand on this, now you don't use any air conditioning at your house, so your electric bill is not mine. Mine is about $400. I only have a $2,200. Go ahead.
$160. Yeah. You know that.
You have Smeco.
I have Smeco, and I live on a farm, and it's a big house, and it includes all the farm buildings too, by the way.
Yeah.
$160. Yeah, exactly right. Yep.
No, so my bedroom air conditioning uses $160. Valerie, so you don't have any air conditioning. Guess the temperature that we keep our house at.
You know the temperature you keep your at. What's it, like 60?
No, I'm not going to say what it is, but I'm going to say I might put that out as my.
This is your Yeti mug.
My Yeti mug giveaway. Guess the temperature, and I'll go upstairs and verify it for you. It literally like. We pull it up during the day, but right around 9 o'clock at night, put the air on.
9 o'clock.
So Jackie Lumpkin just says 65 LOL. Lower.
Okay. So Brian, let's go back to it. So what are we talking? We're talking about personal preference items, number one, right? We're talking about hidden costs that we need to be aware of on houses. And then the last thing I think you said, which is very important, which is the financing cost. Because you pointed something out very, very early. You said, if I buy something, I don't always get fully disclosed. I got clients that bought cars, and their rate on their car is 18 or 20%.
They got fully disclosed, but they didn't comprehend it because they make it so complicated. And that was the whole rub with the mortgage business a while back, where they would say, and now we've sort of streamlined it. So it's easier. Yeah, the APR and all this stuff. Like, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you look at that. Yeah, Jackie, just I'm gonna put it in my email. You can try to guess what it is, but it's lower than 65. I'll just say that.
Yeah, Brian's told you all, so you know.
And that's in the summer, and we run the air conditioner all winter. We have the air conditioning on in December, January, February, all the months we run the air conditioner at nighttime because our body heat can heat up the house, and if it gets above the threshold, then we must run the air because we theoretically, I guess we could melt.
That's true. You could. I mean,
but Tim, back to the point about the stuff. Like I would say that most people don't have the they put everything in legalese. It's very hard to understand.
Correct.
And it's like very, very like over people's heads. And at the end of the day, they're always just like when they buy a house or a car. What are they really looking at? Are they looking at the APR, Tim? Are they looking at the points? Are they looking? What are they looking at?
The payment.
The payment. That's exactly. It. That's all people care about. What's the payment? Is it locked in or not? That's the only two things they always care about. Is can I pay it off early? Is there a prepayment penalty? Can the rate change? And what is my payment? And after that, it's like, whatever, bro. That's your job. You figure it all out.
My payment just went up $388.56. I mean, for 20 years, Brian. That's freaking nuts. That's all
I would also argue, Tim, that like they could probably use a fair amount of electricity and not have an electric bill, and it's probably 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. I agree that it's not a good idea, but I also would argue with you that if we're going to really like evaluate the scenario from a lending perspective, if we were able to, we would dial it out a little bit and say, okay, yeah, they have an extra $350 a month, but they have no electric bill, which was $350 a month.
For how many months?
Forever, but everybody's got electric forever. Like I can show you my electric bill since I've been married, and it's been high since I've been married, right? So there you go.
We don't get sunshine in January, right?
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Okay, just saying. Yeah. Brian, okay, what they say? They say buyer beware, right? Isn't that the old Latin phrase?
Yeah, no, I don't have solar panels. I've had people call, I actually live in the woods. I can't get them, but I wouldn't get them. But if I ever lived on a farm in La Plata, I would get them, but I would buy them.
I would buy them too. All right, brother.
All right, Tim.
I'll see you.
All right, man.
All right, bye. You hung up on me. Well, out here. We'll see you soon.